screwed that up. Great start to the show as always, with a glorious screw up. Welcome to the LeBrain Train. All aboard, says Rob Daniels. And yes, you will see I'm sporting a hand injury that I just acquired 10 minutes ago. We'll get into that later. But before we start the main event tonight, which is Frank Loffredo from Crocks N Rolls, $5 at the door. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
All right. I'm your sneeze.
Say hi to my sweetie. Thanks, Rob.
Hi to your sweetie, whoever she is, and you're in trouble.
You're my sweetie.
Okay.
Before we have our special guest tonight, Mr. Frank Loffredo from Crocks N Rolls, recently the subject of I should just do it this way. Recently the subject of a great documentary called $5 at the Door, the story of Crocks N Rolls. He'll be joining us in about 7 minutes. But until then, let's check this out. This is something I have been talking about on this show. Something very special indeed. And there should be, there's one. Two, three. I thought there would be a fourth one in here. Come on, I paid for 4, didn't I? Yes, I did. There we go. 4. Haha. Limited edition to 4 copies on 5-inch vinyl. 4 copies existing in the entire world, 5-inch vinyl. The recently rediscovered first take of Evil Kirk by Dr. Catherine Ladano and Michael Ladano. The very first time I ever performed the song, the lyrics, Aaron, who you know and love, the Keeps Me Alive guy, recently rediscovered the track and sent me a digital copy, and I had 4 vinyl copies made. Limited edition. Good evening, Harrison Kopp. How are you? Rob Daniels says hello to Jen. Hey, Dana, how you doing? Yeah, Ken Hensley. Was that this morning? Honestly, I'm losing track of time. The entire week has been blurring together. And I believe Ken we lost him today. They announced it from Uriah Heep. Very sad. Very sad. Just another casualty. Chris Sarr, choo-choo, all aboard. Hey, Mr. Deke, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I see we both decided to do hats tonight.
That's it. It's hat night. Friday hat night.
I am sending Frank Loffredo the link right now.
Okay.
All right. Frank has been invited.
Yeah.
And Kevin Sinister has, okay. Yeah, we're going to talk. Hopefully you'll stick around for a few minutes after the show is done with Frank, because we want to discuss with Kevin Sinister his side gig on Jeopardy.
Yeah, sure.
where he apparently goes by the name of Devin, not Kevin.
Devin Kevin.
I'm pretty sure I saw him on Jeopardy last night. And he's winning a ton of cash too, so. Nice shirt.
Hey?
Nice shirt.
Give me an R.
We're both doing the Canuck Rock tonight.
Yeah. Well, actually, ironically enough, T-Bone got me this shirt when he seen him back in 2016.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and ironically enough, I bought this exact same shirt when they played here back in 1990. So.
All right. I would like to add Mr. Kevin, buried on Mars Sinister, to the show. And
hello,
our special guest, the one, the only, from Crocs, Mr. Frank Loffredo.
Oh, yeah.
How you doing, guys?
Nice to meet you finally.
Good.
Likewise.
Well, we can see and hear you okay. Can you see and hear us okay?
I can hear you. Derek?
Gentlemen?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I can hear you.
Testing 1 2.
Yeah, I can hear everybody.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Well, the guy below me is the pro, man. He's got the whole setup there, Frank.
Oh, no. I am, Sesame Street, one of these things don't belong here. That's me. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I'm just a guy who wrote a blog post.
Well, I'm new at this. I don't do this kind of stuff. I stay behind the stage all the time.
Well, that's what we're going to get into tonight is a lot of this behind the stage stuff, off the stage, side stage, everywhere, backstage. We're just want to pick your brain, of course, about the documentary, of course, about bringing all kinds of acts through Thunder Bay over 30, what are we looking at?
30
years is what the documentary said.
30 years?
Well, yeah, that was probably when the documentary was 30. You know what? The first band was May 14th of 1990. I'm going to age myself. I was only 12. 86.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a local band. Oh, what was their name? I can remember the guy, the Blind Tiger. They were alternative cover band. They were doing a lot of like Vapors, Bowie-esque stuff. Really good band. But it's not the direction I wanted to go. I wanted to go a little bit different. But that was the first band that played. I think it was May 14th. It was May of 86.
Wow.
Yeah.
Before I was even in high school.
Yeah,
I was in grade 8.
I wasn't. I was just out of high school.
Yeah, that was my graduating year out of 13, so I was right behind you. But that's the thing, Frank. Let's maybe start there with 1986 is their first show booked. When did you realize that you're going to start doing this as a whole undertaking would last till now?
Well, you know what? If I'm the type I like giving credit to people who, when I start thinking back, and my first bartending job was in a place called Doodles. It was in Keskus Mall where
Yeah,
used to be, and now there's nothing. I
nothing.
don't in the parking lot. So that's how far back. But that was my first bartending job with a guy named Bruce Fallon, who I give a lot of credit to. But before that, I was going to school in Kitchener, and I used to just hang around I wasn't old enough to drink, but I was down drinking in the bomb shelter, I think it was called.
Yes, sir. That is, I believe, the University of Waterloo's bar.
Yeah, and then I'd hang out in Wilfrid Laurier, and there was so much going on. This is like very early, probably 1980, and 80, 81. And I remember sitting in the cafeteria in Wilfrid Laurier, and some guy named Max, I think his name was Max, he was from the band Max Webster. But I believe he was jamming away. And then I would just go and see all sorts of shows. There was a club in Kitchener. I looked older. Funny, I looked older when I was young, and I look young when I'm older, so that worked out good. But I used to go to a couple of places, and all these people, the music scene, all I can remember is sitting in the bomb shelter or sitting in the campus center of Waterloo, and the DJs there were playing this weird shit, because all I'd ever heard was, the standard Thunder Bay radio stuff, Led Zeppelin, Harlequin, same stuff they're playing today, 40 years later.
Yeah,
it hasn't really changed, but I remember them playing all this crazy music, and there was I just wanted to find out what all those tunes were, and it really, really stuck with me. And then I started buying a lot of music when I was in Southern Ontario. I would just hang out in, like I said, Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier, surrounded by all sorts of music all the time. And but then I ended up going back to Thunder Bay. And it's like I need to hear, because there was nothing. I mean, there was the only way to find out about music back then was New Musical Express. It was a newspaper from the UK.
Yep.
That it would. Luckily, I had found that newspaper at a place called Felino's on Algoma Street, but that was the only place. I would search the whole town for that magazine, and they just had. I think they brought in 2 or 3 copies. Then I started buying music like crazy, at King Stereo and St. James, and in the garbage, in the recycle bins, and all the best music was always in the recycle bins every time. And so the way I started following music was I would look at the back. I would look at who the producers were. I would look at where it was recorded. I would look at the record labels. I would look at, there was fanzines, which is kind of interesting because what you guys are doing is very similar to the whole fanzine culture, do-it-yourself culture of the 80s. And that's basically how I picked up new music, because being from Thunder Bay, I mean, there's no, internet wouldn't happen for 25, 30 years. I used to drive. I remember having to get my fix for music. My brother was going to go down to Toronto for whatever reason, and so he ends up going to the Zanzibar Club, and I end up hanging out in the Record Peddler the whole day. Record Peddler was a real famous place for imports and stuff from the UK. Nothing against Canadian music then, and nothing against American music in the mainstream, but I've always felt that all those big guys already had enough help, so they didn't need my help buying their music. So I was avoiding stuff like this, the mainstream stuff that's still popular today. I never really got into. So I mean, I know you guys talk about bands like Kiss, and I know what they mean to everybody, and that's awesome. I never ever got. I still to this day cannot understand. And listen, don't take offense at this.
No.
I'm friends with everybody. The whole AC/DC, Kiss, Led Zeppelin was good because Physical Graffiti and Moby Dick were like two awesome albums. But I was trying to go on. I used to get excited by XTC, English Settlement, and I thought everybody in the world had heard of XTC. I thought everybody knew about XTC, and I was going to have this great album, and I'd bring it to a party, and it's like, what the hell is this crap? It didn't go over very well. So and then I started working I got my first bartending job in Thunder Bay. I basically went into the restaurant and offered the guy, I said, listen, I'll work for 30 days for you for free, because he wasn't hiring. I said, I'll work for 30 days, all day and all night, or as long as you need me. Put me doing whatever you wanted me to do. And so I started working there. Then he put me bartending in this little back room. And I asked him if it was cool to play some of my mixtapes. So I wasn't really DJing. And he would have bands, Doodles would have bands playing on the weekend. And it was always different. So after that 30 days was up, he hired me full time. I knew he would, because I'm a pretty decent worker and I'm pretty passionate when I get into something. But it was really important because I could listen to music. And even though he booked a lot of music I didn't like, he was bringing in, just cover stuff, folky stuff. But what I noticed was when a folk band, when a guy named Rodney Brown and the Derailers would play, when they played, I'd be busy making these, I think they were called hula hoops. It was ice cream drinks. So you're making milkshakes with booze in them all night long. But the place would fill up with folk crowd, and they would have to come in through a parkade, a back area, really, really weird entrance. Like, it's not like it's on the main strip. It was like the door to get in at nighttime was through a parkade, which was really bizarre to me, but it worked. And the place would pack up. And then another weekend, he would put in, I didn't even know, this is so long ago, I don't even know, it was like a blues band, and it would be all, I'd be slinging all beer on the weekend, right? And then he allowed me to start booking, some of his customers liked some of the music I was playing. And he just let me do whatever I wanted with the music system. It wasn't anything fantastic. I was just playing a lot of mixtapes that still have stuff like Mink DeVille and all sort of cool UK British stuff. But he got me to book one band called Aladdin Sane with a bunch of local young guys. And it was like the craziest night ever. I think it was record sales. I seem to remember somebody flying over the staircase that led into the parkade. RCMP got involved, cops got involved. It was the rowdiest thing for this little family mall restaurant. And that's actually the night that I thought there's potential for a music gig in Thunder Bay. And then I could do, I could listen to music and work and hopefully make a living out of it. So that's really the real background of how it all started at the very beginning.
Whoa, that's
If I could just jump in a minute, I don't know if you knew this, but you're talking to Kitchener right now. So, and I went to Laurier, so I'm thrilled to hear that you have that in your history. That's really exciting for me.
Laurier was, I would be introduced at Laurier. I think it was Laurier. I might be wrong, but there was a band called Spyro Gyra. I can't even tell you what kind of music this was. Spyro Gyra, I believe, was jazz, harmonium. These were like some real off-the-wall bands for a kid from Thunder Bay. But I just thought it was like, wow, man. Like, and the reason I bring up that story is because when I moved the concept into reality, because it was just, there was nothing in Thunder Bay. There was Helix in Thunder Bay, I think, at the time, right, Derek?
Oh, they were regulars at the In-Towner, Sleeping Giant, everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere but your place.
Well, I couldn't, because it's not that I was blocked. My taste in music, I know all those places. I went to all those places, and every once in a while, I like all kind of music. I'm not a music snob by any means. But I went to a lot of those places, and every once in a while they had some really, really great talent. But I think it was accidental. It wasn't a situation where I can't remember some of the bands that would come in, but every once in a while I would go there. And it's like, well, it's not really, you can have a great band, but if the crowd there wants to kick the shit out of poor Arthur Boy, you're in trouble, right? Music was, I started relating music with the demographic. And so I sort of avoided certain places, even if they had great bands, because what's the point? I'm not going to be able to enjoy it.
No, true.
I'm going to read a couple reader comments, and then I'm going to let Kevin talk for a minute. But we have viewers from Brazil, and we have viewers from Hawaii, which is fantastic. And Chris is wondering what your favorite band is.
My favorite band, in what genre? Hey, you know what? There's another thing. Being from Thunder Bay, it's almost impossible to have, it's impossible to have a favorite genre anyways, but being from Thunder Bay, I know a lot of promoters across North America that, they specialize in Toronto, you can specialize in metal, or you can specialize in jazz, or you specialize in folk, and in Thunder Bay, in order to survive as long as I had to really know all the music, including all the mainstream. Like I booked a lot of the mainstream rock stars, but I didn't do it for myself. I would book it when I had an agency in the 90s. I booked it for my clients. I never booked Kim Mitchell for myself, but I would book them for, somebody that, or, I booked Trooper lots of times. We did Trooper in 2008. We did about 5 shows up here. So a lot of times I didn't put the Crocks brand on the shows. Because I was an agent for those type of bands. So getting back to that question, my favorite genre is probably secretively, my favorite genre is metal. It really is. But it's a personal thing, because metal for me is all about live. Listening to metal, I don't. I'll put on like Half Moon Run or Coulter Wall if I'm listening to music at home, or hip hop. I love hip hop, which is kind of a lot of my friends think is unusual, but hip hop is there's a lot of great hip hop music. I'd say actually there's a tie between metal and hip hop, and I can't say if I was going to have a favorite hip hop artist, it would be Tech Nine. Favorite metal artist would be, oh man, there's way too many. Maybe because I booked them, I'm on a Marth. You know, yeah. So wait, I've done. I'm been immersed in music for so long that it's hard to have a favorite.
Well, that's a great answer. I'm going to throw it over to Kevin, but Eric Litwiller's got a great question too. I also want to get to, but Kevin, you go ahead.
Okay, I don't know how many questions I'm going to be able to get in, so it's hard for me to pick one. You were saying the way I understand it is that you had Crocks N Rolls, and that was your business, and you would book acts for that business, but you also were a promoter for other venues as well, right?
Yeah. I was, well, from up until 96, June 14th, I'm really good with dates because special dates really stick out in my mind. June 14th, or it was a June 15th. Don't take it, if I'm within 3 days, that's pretty good. But June 14th of 96, NHL playoffs, the worst time to be a promoter. I don't know about the rest of Canada, but Thunder Bay, it's like I used to put real big X marks across my calendar. April, May, and June, just like stay away, because you can't compete with hockey, because I don't care how much you're into music. Everybody that's into music is more into sports and hockey, and same thing with the World Series. And I don't know why I never thought of buying a television screen and showing hockey. I just never occurred to me at the beginning, anyways. So from up until 96, I was doing my own stuff in my own place, the original Crocks. And then that's the portion that the movie concentrates on. Mm-hmm. But from 95 to 2003, I was at a place called Coyotes. I was an agent, and we booked a lot of bands, like a lot of bands that were developing at Crocks over the years. Went over to Coyotes, which in 2003 to 2006 became Warp 9, and I booked shows over there. Then I did some stuff at the university, then up to, just about every place in town. And a lot of festivals in the area. Grand Portage Casino, which is a casino over the border in Minnesota. Did that for 20 years. We actually did All-Stars guys there. The idiots that just, the guys that just did that big COVID scandal.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Smash Mouth.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we did Smash Mouth there about 10 years ago even.
They still draw a crowd.
What's that?
They still draw a crowd. It's amazing.
I don't know if they do. Do they?
Well, I don't know. Enough that they don't have to get day jobs, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, but yeah, so I've been promoting. I was promoting for other people or an agent. So I was doing all that. And then 2009, 10, we sort of reinvented the old brand next door to my old location. And, I'm more, to be honest with you, I'm more proud of that accomplishment from 2010 to 2018 because of what we were able to bring in. I mean, we were bringing in bands like Proclaimers, the Sheepdogs while they were big.
Nice.
Like in the old place, I brought in a lot of big people while they were small. We bring in Our Lady Peace, and then we maybe bring them back again. But the bands were developing so quickly back in the day, you could never get them back because the place was, the legal capacity was 150, and I think every once in a while, you know, we would hit 200, 300. So we're always constantly looking out the door to see if the liquor inspector is coming in. So, you know, when we were packed, and it's really difficult to do things in a small venue like the original place. That it even worked, it still boggles my mind. Like, it's still going. And I know a lot of people go, well, you know, there's venues like that in every city, and you had a monopoly, and, you know, every city's got a venue like that. Well, the way I look at it is, and Derek can vouch for that, I think it's harder in a town like Thunder Bay because, you know, you don't have, number one, you don't have the artist traffic. You have the artist traffic going across the country, but you don't have the audience. So it was always difficult to book a band. Like, you know, we'll say a band like the Proclaimers 20 years ago, or a band like Shaggy. There's no way I could have booked them in a 150-seat club. I didn't even have, you know, I couldn't even fit their stage gear into the entire venue.
Right.
The buses were bigger than the venue almost.
You still need a guy like yourself who is going to make the band want to play there. You know, sure, it might have been a location of convenience for, you know, some acts, but not everybody would want to stay there.
No, you know, at the, like with some bands, I don't even know how it worked out because, you know, I remember like in 95, Rancid, the opening band was AFX.
No effects.
Huge, massive. I mean, you couldn't even book Rancid into Thunder Bay right now. Like, there's no place big enough. You couldn't pay enough. Well, you could pay the money, but you're not going to get the people for Rancid these days. But they would still draw a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I could have put them in a 1,000-seat venue, and there's been numerous times over the last 30 years. It just happened with Akon again a couple of years ago. It happened with quite a few bands. I don't know. You just can't. I guess, like, being in Thunder Bay, people just don't. I don't know if they appreciate how big some of these bands really are. You know. Yeah. Your daughter came to Half Moon Run. We were almost sold out for Half Moon Run.
Yeah, she loved it.
Yeah, and there was another band called Future Islands. This was just a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. I have the hardest time booking bands because I know the music, and taking a band going, well, yeah, I know who Future Islands is, but I can't possibly book you into Thunder Bay because nobody cares. It's a Labor Day weekend, and one of the most amazing things happened when Future Islands played at the end on Labor Day weekend of 2018. Tickets were not cheap. And the place packed up on a Labor Day weekend in Thunder Bay. That's like, does not ever happen. That's one of my dates on my calendar where I just X, no bands, don't book, no matter who it is, just don't book it. Because it's long weekends around here are you know, traditionally pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
But that worked out, you know.
I want to read Eric Litwiller's question here. I don't know if you've had these guys, but he's a big fan of 5 Alarm Funk, Canadian group. I know they came your way a few times. What are your thoughts on the band and working with them? Big thumbs up from Frank.
5 Alarm Funk is they're one of those bands, you know. When I first started, again, I used to make this joke to a couple of friends and to myself mainly. That, you know, what do people want, especially on a dead night when there's like 12 people for a really, really, really good band like that 5 Alarm Funk? And like, what do they want? Invitation in bed, you know? And sure enough, you get an invitation in bed these days. But the only way I could really promote, and I was booking so much stuff, and I was also cooking in the kitchen. We had a restaurant at daytime. So as much as people thought of it as a dive bar, we sold pretty good food, and that's what kept it alive. You know, like I joke about it, but the grilled cheese sandwiches is what kept that place going and paid for the Canadian movie team. I would book a band like at 5 Alarm Funk at the beginning, and then I realized that, you know, you'd book them on the way east, and you knew there was something special about them. You didn't know what, because you didn't know what was special about them. Like a band like Me, Mom, and Morgenthaler, King Apparatus, these are old bands, Skydiggers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so many. Jazzberry Ram is another one. And when I met 5 Alarm Funk and Roots Roundup, these are some Canadian bands that were really, really awesome. But what happened with a lot of those bands is on the way out, west or east, depending on which way they were coming from, you knew there was something special. And I thought, well, if I could get 50 people out for a band, I knew on the way back I would get 75. And on their next Canadian tour, I'm going to get 125. Right. And that formula was working. That's why a lot of times you would see, you know, I would book, you know, I think back now and I go, why would I book a band like, and I hate dropping names, why would I book a band that nobody gave a shit about, like the Tragically Hip, for 3 days? Well, it's true, right? Nobody gave a shit about the Tragically Hip. They came and time again, 30 years later, people are still like, I still remember the university students going, what kind of a gay name is that for a band? They refused to pay the $3 cover charge. So what I would do is I would just lock the doors after midnight, because that's when traditionally all the drunks would come in. And I would just stand there with myself with like 12 people. But
Frank, was there a band that completely surprised you that you thought wouldn't be like when you first heard them or whatever? They didn't seem like they would ever go anywhere, and then they just took off.
Yeah, the Tragically Hip.
Okay. There you go.
I thought Junior Gone Wild would have been bigger. There's tons. I mean, we did so many. You know what? 5 Alarm Funk. It's another one. I mean, they're starting to take off.
Right.
But that band there, going back to just to finish that question really quickly, is that that band there is amazing. They should be way bigger than they are. They tour constantly across North America and Canada, and the only way they're developing their audience is by touring.
Yeah.
You know, you just don't get, like, no offense to this whole virtual thing that's happening with bands and stuff. I can't get into it. I'm a live guy. I'm not going to tune in. Much music died for a reason, because nobody wanted to watch videos.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to watch a streaming video of a band. I want the live music to come back.
What about like, I've seen the Rack on Tours live, and they are a completely different band live. Like, you listen to their albums, and I like their albums; they sound fine. But when I went to see them live, they blew me away how incredibly loud they were. Is there a band? Any examples of that? Like, they just sound different on vinyl or on CD, and then you hear them live, and they just
like a 5 Alarm Funk.
Okay, sure.
Well, any metal band. I mean, like I said, I love metal. Hip hop is different. Hip hop, I kind of like more sometimes on vinyl. Like I'll listen to. Well, he's got some really insane lyrics, but Necro. I like some of Necro, some old school stuff, and I like Mobb Deep. I love a lot of good old hip hop on vinyl, but then seeing them live, it's hit and miss. I think 5 Alarm Funk has that. They've got that really good vibe when it's live. I think most metal bands, to me, I have a hard time listening to metal. You know, I can't give you any one band. I can't name a specific band that comes across poorly on vinyl or poorly live, but I find overall, if the sound man is really good and the band lets the house tech do the mix.
Right.
That's really, really key.
Mm.
I've never understood why a band who brings along a house technician lets their guy do the mix. Because I've had band, like when I had my guy Len doing sound, the band sounded bang on. And if this band sounded bad, we would get the shit because of the PA system, the speakers, whatever. But you know, it's like trying to drive a new car. You know, first time. Let the house tech do it. That's my advice to touring bands, especially young touring bands. Make sure that the house tech is solid.
That's cool.
How big is the current place? Your old place was 150. How much is the current one?
The old place was 150, and we would. I mean, if we had to, we would put in. You know, face to face was like 350 people. Sue me.
Right.
The one in 2010, the reincarnation, that I did a deal with the landlord, wasn't my place. It was just a brand. Like after 96, whenever you see Crocks is basically, you know, a small indie label. It's a brand.
Gotcha.
For whatever it means. I don't know. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it means something to music people. It means, for me, it was more of getting my name out there, knowing that I was still around, right? Yeah. That was the whole idea behind the whole Crocks thing. The location now, I mean, that place which it's called Envy, that's not my place. I'll say that right now.
Okay.
It's in, you know, we did a deal. I mean, my attitude is, like, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I think it's a space. If you bring the right people and the right music and the right sound system, I just need four walls. You know, I could do this in Kitchener. I could do it in Waterloo. I think it would be a hell of a lot easier. But I wouldn't want to step on other promoters because, you know, there's promoters on record in every market. Right. So, you know, when there's markets, there's a lot of, I think, isn't Maxwell's is in Kitchener? Well,
that's right. Maxwell's Music House is up in Waterloo by the university.
Yeah. So someone told me Pop Evil said, I think Pop Evil was at Maxwell's. And they said it was very comparable to this place in Thunder Bay.
Cool.
You know, where I was at home up until last year. I haven't done anything at all this year.
Yeah.
So if you know of any venues, I'm open.
So what did you find easier to book, like the smaller place or is a bigger venue easier?
I mean, it depends on, see, if it's money, like if it's cash,
yeah,
money, finances, it's easier to book the bigger places. And right. I'll tell you why. What's that guy's name from Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And you know something? I was never, you know, I was by no means I like all music.
Right.
He's really good. And another guy, I'll say Nick Carter and Akon.
Okay.
That's cool.
Neither of those shows, right? And Coleman Hell, the local boy. Mm-hmm. Those three shows, normally if I booked a Trues or any national Canadian or American act, I've got to drop about $1,500 in advertising, and I'm probably losing money. Okay.
Wow.
With a band like Nick Carter, Akon, we've had a few of them. Shaggy, no advertising needed. I posted Akon and Nick. I posted Akon just on a post. Tickets go on sale tomorrow, pre-sale. And I forgot to refresh my Facebook page. And I go, oh, this is depressing. I mean, how bad? Like, what does Thunder Bay want? I mean, I got Nick Carter for them, and I got Akon for them, and there's not even one like on Facebook.
Right.
My phone, and my phone was off. I'm going, what is going on? I was so depressed because it was a fairly decent guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, then for all of a sudden, phone starts ringing and people want to know where they can buy tickets. And I'm going, I had forgot to refresh the Facebook page when I fell asleep, when I did the post, right? And
right.
It blew up, and it cost me literally zero on advertising.
Oh, wow.
So why do you think that is? Why do you think a pop band is easier to sell than a rock band?
Well, no, not necessarily pop. It's not necessarily pop music. It could be, if it was a big rock band,
right?
I mean, it depends on how big the rock band is.
Okay.
Right. But like, those are pretty significant names. So when you're getting a significant name into a club of 500 or 600 or 700 people, I think people are smart enough to realize, well, this is going to easily sell out, so we better buy a ticket.
I see. Okay.
I think
in my world, the Trues are bigger than Nick Carter. So,
hey, you know what? Nick Carter was completely amazing. There was no lip syncing because I asked my sound tech.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's cool. That's cool.
He was amazing, and this is from a fellow Trues fan. I would say I like to, if I was going to go buy an album, I'd buy the Trues over Nick Carter. But Nick Carter was really good, and Akon. Not much of a fan of pop music, but business-wise, wow. And the truth is, I will say this. I was expecting to deal with a diva and a bit of a, douchebag. He was awesome. He was completely like a gentleman, sweetest guy, I was expecting, you always expect something different from these artists. When you see them on, their persona,
right? Yeah.
It was completely different. Like these guys, they got all these gold chains. Tech Nine's another one. Super decent guy.
That's awesome.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I got one more two-part question, and I'll shut up and let other people talk. How much does you kind of alluded to it before, but how much does personal taste, like your personal taste, go into booking a band? Like if you had these guys would make more money, but I kind of like these guys more, I want to see them again or whatever. And my second part of that question is, are cover bands okay? Would you ever book cover bands, or have you?
I have booked cover bands when I was working for other people. When Coyotes was a pretty popular bar in Thunder Bay, and once you know music, whether it's cover or not. And even though it might not be my taste, I know what's going to sell and I know what's going to work. I mean, I know what's popular. I know it's going to. It would have been a lot easier. It'd be a lot easier if I could just book cover bands, because the bands that we were booking, it was based on the bands being able to draw, right?
Right. Yeah.
And what was the other? Sorry, the other part of the question.
How much does your personal taste go into booking a band?
At the beginning, all of it.
Right.
At the beginning, I mean, if I didn't like the band,
no chance.
I wasn't going to book you. At the first 10 years,
yeah,
it was all about. As a matter of fact, when I was at Coyotes, I booked this. I was really into reggae music because all my favorite punk rock bands said they were influenced by Jamaican and reggae music. So I had to figure out what the hell reggae music was all about. So I started buying all this reggae music and ska. But I booked Black Uhuru into Coyotes. And at that point, I was broke. They were paying for everything.
Wow.
And it wasn't cheap. But Black Uhuru was a pretty major reggae band. This was probably 1998, 1999. And the guy's, Jerry's wife, Doris, I still remember, said, somehow, Frank, I got a feeling you booked this one for yourself. Right? And
Right.
I don't know if tickets were selling, but again, just like Future Islands all these years later, somehow we ended up with like 500 people sold or 400, and it was a really, really successful night. So like that's one of those situations where I'm going, that answers your question. That was a risky one where I said, yeah, I think this one will work. Because a lot of times when I went to work for other people, they expected me to have a crystal ball and what's going to work and what's not going to work. And I don't have that. But I had a pretty good feeling Black Uhuru might do well, and it did do well. But at the beginning, it was all personal. I say in the reincarnation from 2010 to now, it was mostly personal with a little bit of business, because as much as I love music, the hardest part for me was having to say, I've had to say no to more bands that I've said yes to. And before I used to say yes to more bands that I said no to. Because I just knew that nobody was coming out for the smaller bands, because as the catch-22 is that once you sort of arrived and you start booking big bands, people expect big bands,
Right.
So if you're giving them Matchbox 20, or say a band like that, I didn't book Matchbox 20, but if you're giving them these big major bands, and then all of a sudden you want to give them something mediocre, they're going to go somewhere else for mediocre.
Right.
So it's kind of like a fine balance. So, but at the beginning, definitely I did everything. Everything was completely personal.
I think we're all like that when we're younger, eh? Like we're all like, oh, I only listen to this kind of music, and I'm only into this kind of music. And then as you get older, you kind of soften to more things.
That's like one of my favorite movies, Salad Days, Just Being Green.
Right.
I do admit I was green and naive, and I learned everything, and I'm pretty fortunate because I had no clue. It was just completely, it was just a passion for wanting to listen to music, right?
Were you going by the seat of your pants all the time, or was there like somebody that kind of showed you the way a little bit, or was it just from working the bar that you were able to figure out what to do?
My policy still is seat of my pants.
Okay, well there you go.
and
You're successful at it then.
And my revised policy is things always work out.
Nice.
I'm going to ask you a quick two-part question, and then I'm going to throw it over to Deke. But we talked a broad range of music already tonight. So two-part question. Is there any genre of music that you just flat out doesn't appeal to you, you don't listen to? And part two, are you wearing a Dred Zeppelin t-shirt?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, you know what? I'm not going to say flat out won't book it, but I don't know enough. This one genre, and when I say the genre, I won't say the complete genre, because on one hand, I call like the mainstream country, pop country.
Yeah.
I just, not that I don't like it. I just don't know it. I never followed it, and it was by choice. I just never followed it, but I did follow for some reason. I didn't follow Hank's too, but I do follow Hank, right?
Yeah.
And I never liked like some of these new guys, like Coulter Wall, like these rebel guys, like these guys are a bit different. To me, Coulter Wall is more punk rock than most rockers I know, because punk rock to me is just about doing your own thing. It's not about how you look or whatever. Punk rock to me is just being raw and going out there. But Coulter Wall, I booked him twice last year, and man, I don't even believe a guy like that exists. That's how good he is. To me, it felt like the last time I felt that was when I first saw Big Sugar. I thought, wow, I can imagine what the kids must have thought in the 50s when Elvis came out. They must have thought something just came out from another, something dropped in from another parallel universe or something, because it was just must be crazy. That's how I felt about Big Sugar when I first saw him. And when I saw Coulter Wall, it's like, is this what people must have seen when Johnny Cash first came out? Did people see this? Because that's what he comes across as, just something new. Completely amazing. I did him in Sudbury and I did him in Thunder Bay last year. Super mellow guy. And then I kept on thinking, all these people want to, the big thing right now is meet and greet with the bands. You pay $100, you get to meet them, and right. I'm going, man, Coulter Wall, Samuel T. Herring, the lead singer of Future Islands. These guys are just hanging out at this ball. If you go to a band, these are pro-life hacks. If you go to a show, go a bit early, go out throughout the night, go to the smoking area. Or I think I met Weezer, some of the guys from Weezer outside of Minneapolis. They were just because they were smoking by the bus.
My buddy Eric Litwiller, who we heard from earlier tonight, accidentally blew joint smoke into Geddy Lee's face by hanging out in the smoking area at what's the name of that band, Kevin?
Claypool and
Les Claypool.
Lennon and Claypool. Yeah.
With Sean Lennon, I believe. Right. Anyway, Geddy Lee did a guest appearance in Toronto, and my buddy Eric accidentally blew pot smoke into Geddy Lee's face. So that's a story. Deke, why don't you take it over for a minute?
Sure. Frank, that's the thing about living here in T-Bay, like you were talking earlier about, like lagging attendances and stuff. And a lot of it is weeknight. I mean, working folk weeknight, but you did the right thing. You would always say, hey, man, we're shutting her down by 11:30. And, like when you brought guys like John 5 to town on a Tuesday night, worth going, because I have to say that was probably one of the best productions I've ever seen on a bar stage ever, with the props, the robot. The guy had an arena show in a bar, yet here's a guy, John 5, who plays arenas with Zombie and Manson, and then he can just leave it all at that door. Come on.
Did you see the quick change clock he had?
Yeah.
At the end of the night, he stayed in there. I didn't realize he was in there. and I guess I can't remember if we walked him out to the bus. It's like, I think he might have. Don't quote me on this, but it's like, everybody gone? And he was so humble, so mellow.
Yeah.
You're always expecting these guys to go like, I don't know. I always, you always think something different about these guys when you actually meet them. And some of those guys are the chillest of them all. I had more attitude from 14-year-old garage bands than I did from Gilby Clarke, who was in Guns N' Roses. And that's the truth. Gilby Clarke's another one. Complete gentleman, completely humble.
Oh, nice to know.
Yeah, like these, like so humble. Like just these guys just want to play. It's their agents who are assholes. Most of the time. I'm not picking on anyone specific.
No,
just a general statement.
Yeah, just a general statement. But see that, like, that's the thing, and that's good to know. I mean, like John 5, for instance, that's the first time I ever seen a headlining show with just the dude playing guitar. I mean, I've always been a singer guitar guy, but boy, man, that, you know what? Just it was a great night. And then before him was Jared James Nichols, and he was phenomenal.
Super guy. I know those early shows, like that's something relatively recent.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting really scared because, at the end of the day, you need people to buy tickets to make this thing go. And when we're doing these shows, I knew, like, reflecting back, when I was working for other bars, or, they want to keep everybody till 2 a.m. because that's the closing time, 2 a.m. Well, I knew that was the wrong way to go, but the habits had already been in place for so many years. So trying to get these people that are like 40 plus, 35 plus going out, period, Right. Going out, period. And then when I would advertise like I advertised a 6 p.m. show, and I go, am I nuts? I mean, the staff didn't even want to come out at 7 o'clock. It's like, what's the point? And actually, I believe it was Half Moon Run. I can't remember which show it was, but several shows started at, doors at 6:30, 7 o'clock. And that's fine. I just have to argue with these American tour managers, because in the States, I don't know, they want to do 5 o'clock shows. That's great, but that's not. I never thought that was rock and roll in Thunder Bay, but it worked out. But at the beginning, for a couple of years, it was hard because a lot of people like yourself would come out at 10:30 and the band was over. We had a really successful Saturday night, and I refused to book bands on Saturday nights because we had this DJ. And I always swore to myself when the 90s rave scene happened, if the DJ scene ever came back, I would never lose it. I would get on top of it. So we kind of owned the DJ scene from 2009 to 2000, and I'm going to say 15. And a lot of times those kids wouldn't come out till 11:30, 12 o'clock. Mm. And the rockers wanted to be in bed by 11:30, 12 o'clock. and I could charge $20 for a ticket, and $25 for a ticket, and $30 for a ticket. So I had Elliot Brood come out, and I think I had the Sadies. Wow. And I love these bands, and normally I wouldn't put these bands on a DJ night, but I would tell them there's a disco loadout, meaning, tunes are going on at 11:30. Don't get mad, right? But there's a lot of time, so we'd start the show at 7:30, and 10:30 it would be over. We do a changeover, and those were some of my most favorite nights, because the kids would come out, and it's like we already had a sold out. We already had 600 people or 400 people for the show before anybody even knew, before anybody even came out. So that was pretty awesome. Yeah. But it took a while to get people used to. I still don't think they're fully used to 7 p.m. shows. It's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. But I mean, I could vouch that, I think the last 3 times I've seen Sloan, it's been over on a weeknight by no later than 11:30. And like you said earlier, guys like Chris Murray's another guy.
Yeah.
He's out there at the merch table, hanging out, taking pics, answering my questions. Like last year when I asked him, dude, you need a new live album. And he goes, nobody listens to live albums anymore.
He's wrong.
Okay. But just things like that, super chill, like you said.
Sloan is one of those bands. There's not many. And I mean, I love those guys. They've been playing for me since 92, or I gave them one of the original posters, their first Canadian tour at the last show. And they always, they don't go anywhere else. Like, they play for me every time, which I'm always humbled and honored, because one of the toughest thing is with music is you book a band, like even going back to the day, it's like, you would book a band. Well, in Thunder Bay, you're not making money on these shows the first time, and you're not making money on the shows the second time. You're working with these artists. But what happens more often than not with these small venues, going back to an older question, is that you would book the band and hoping to grow with them. But either somebody comes in from, I know it's business, but somebody will come in, you'll develop a band to a certain level, and then somebody with some big bucks that really has no clue on music will say, hey, come and play our 700-seat venue. We'll give you 4 times the money that Frank will. And that's happened. It's happened with a lot of bands. Or they just outgrow you, and that's understandable. So I was always fighting to grow with these bands, but it was impossible. It's so impossible to grow with, because the bands would, you get a band like the Tea Party, they would play for you once, and then by the time they come back through, they've already outgrown 1,000-seat venues. So it was constantly a battle on trying to book them in Thunder Bay, because the venue size, the people that would support it, and what the band needed never, even today, like the Headstones are probably too big for Thunder Bay.
Wow.
You know, the headstones are probably too big compared to what they would, because a band would get paid in Harpo's in Flint. I think Harpo's in Flint, Michigan. Harpo's, the machine shop. These are they're not big places, but the bands are getting big dollars down there. But a band wants the same amount of money that they get paid in a good market, you know, primary market, as they would get in a tertiary market.
Yeah.
Constant juggling. Constant.
Yeah, for sure. Mikey?
Well, I know Deke has told me there's been a few bands that I'm personally quite interested in myself that have played Crocks. I'm just kind of wondering if you have any good stories about Quiet Riot or King's X.
Quiet Riot played. I was the agent for Quiet Riot. No, not the agent. I booked them. I was the buyer for Quiet Riot. They played Coyotes.
Okay.
Now, what's the lead singer? Did he pass away?
Kevin Dubrow. Yeah, I think it was 2007 he passed.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure if we promoted him as Kevin Dubrow or as a Quiet Riot, because
It was Quiet Riot.
It was Quiet Riot.
Coyote.
Coyotes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I never got to deal with him. See, it's kind of funny because with the other bands, you kind of get to deal directly. When the bands have reached the level of Sebastian Bach.
Okay.
Okay. I'm the only reason I met him is because I was the chauffeur. He didn't know I was right. So the bigger rock bands, you're usually dealing with their tour managers, so you don't really get to meet them. The only time you see them is like everybody else when they're on stage. Because soundcheck, Zach Wilde I met. Zach Wilde was cool. Zach Wilde, you know, he had to go take a piss in the club, so I got to meet him.
Cool.
But most of them don't even come out for sound check, you know.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's that genre of music or because they're bigger artists or they think they're bigger. I don't have a lot of memories of Quiet Riot other than it was a really good packed house.
Cool.
You know.
That's nice to know, though.
Yeah.
I like them.
Yeah. What about King's X? Like Mikey said, Frank, like there should have been more than 75 people at that show. I mean, that's crazy, you know, but.
Which show was that?
King's X.
Oh, man, they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
That band was phenomenal. I think with King's X, probably, you know, I used to take things personal. Another reason I stopped booking a lot of bands is because if it wasn't a successful show, it was really hard to book other shows because I would take it personally. King's X I took really personally because I'd been a big fan for so many years. And again, I always get, you know, it's always that thing. And I'm not sure if anybody's ever picked up on it, some of the agents I've talked to in Canada, but I always get excited because I know music, right? But I'm not 500 people.
Yeah.
Guy in Thunder Bay who happens to be the guy picking up the phone and happens to know who King's X is or happens to know who, you know, that band is. I got not depressed. But I got really bummed out because I knew the band wasn't happy. The band obviously knows who they are and what they should. I don't think there were 75 people there. They're awesome guys. You can't really promote a show like King's X in Thunder Bay. This is before any social media. Even posters. What good is it to put an ad for a band like King's X in the local paper or the local radio that's only playing, you know, music that I don't present? Like, what's the point? The only time local media, other than the Chronicle Journal, in the past was ever interested was if it's a band that, you know, suited their demo. But there's no point in that. I think that was the biggest problem. I don't think it's a weeknight. situation, it's the demo's not here for those bands, as unbelievable as it may sound. Another one was, oh, please let me remember her name. Moments in this moment. You
Yes.
know that band?
Yeah.
Massive band, right? They're massive on the international stage. Massive. Booked them a few years ago. Maybe 50 people. Lacuna Coil, Christine Scabia.
Yep.
Got like 20, like, you know, she posts a picture of a bad hair day and she gets 30,000 likes.
Yeah.
We hit maybe 150 people. But again, what do you do when the demographics doesn't suit the music you're booking? That's why Thunder Bay is so difficult. You can't go on the radio. There's no social media. And even if there is social media, you're still advertising to a local audience who's never heard of a King's X.
Yeah.
And then you get 50 people. And then you look like a schmuck to the band that there's only 50 people. So I think a lot of things changed after that King's X, Derek. I stopped even trying to book bands that, you know, there had to be some kind of shtick in order for it to sell here.
Yeah.
You know, personal taste. That was a personal taste booking, and that was a mistake. It would have been cheaper and more beneficial if I would have gone to see them in Minneapolis.
Bummer.
Yeah.
I don't want to end it on a bummer though. We gotta end it on a positive note.
Yeah, but so now should we fast forward into the recent events?
Well, yeah, we should talk about recent events for sure.
Well, we could talk about the movie $5 at the Door.
I mean, that,
what how were you approached for this documentary? Did it come out of left field for you, or was it like, of course someone's going to do a documentary about Crocks N Rolls?
You know what? I wasn't going to tell this story, but I think I will.
Okay.
All right, an exclusive. All right.
my mom, who didn't know very well, you know, she was a cook in the kitchen, and we would open up after the rock shows and clean up a little fast, but she had to get into the kitchen, get ready, because we used to have a pretty good lunch rush. And you know, one of her pet peeves was the graffiti in the washroom. So she would do in the washrooms, and I would do the vacuuming and did everything, right? And on the wall, somebody said, there's two quotes I'll never forget, and I scrubbed it off, and she thought it was something disgusting. But it just said, somebody should make a movie about this place. And is this life imitating art, or is this art imitating life? And those two quotes never got out of my mind. I should have taken the washroom wall. So fast forward to 2012. I was doing quite well. We were doing really well. Financially, we were doing really, really well because of the DJ scene, not because of the rock scene. Okay. And I got this message from Kirsten, and I mean, I don't know if I immediately recognized, but I knew who she was, because, you know, back in the punk days, early punk shows, there wasn't a lot of, I needed the kids coming out, a lot of those 14, 15, 16. That's what, you know, we're doing the all ages shows.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at any hardcore scene in North America, you look at some of the old footage, you don't see a lot of girls. You look at footage in the movie, and there's girls. And to me, it was a big deal to make sure the girls were safe. I used to have a no bullshit policy. And I'm more proud of that policy than anything else, because it was before, you know, the whole. Anyways, she was one of the girls that came in, and as you know, you've seen the movie. You know, I just wanted the girls in, not for just to diversify, so it didn't always look like it, you know, guys. I wanted it to be a safe place for women to come and enjoy as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we made sure of it. It was a safe place before I understood what the hell the term safe place meant. 30 years before. I mean, we made sure it didn't matter what you look like. You know, we let people in. So she sends me a message, and it sounded like she was pretty uncomfortable about, you know, we could meet, maybe talk about if anybody ever suggested about making a movie. And I said, I don't know what I said. I still have the message. But I said, we'll get together, we'll have a coffee. And went to Seattle Coffee House with her and her husband, Chris, who's a videographer. And you know what? I had decided there's two things that I was concerned about. I didn't want to be, I've always been a very progressive kind of guy. I didn't want to be a relic or something that was, I didn't want to affect my current business because I didn't want people to think that I was just something, a throwback from the 80s and 90s. And that's it, because, I need to stay relevant because that's what you do in this business.
Right.
Sort of die in this business. So I was really fearful of that. But at the same time, I thought, well, she was a regular when she was a kid. And anybody that walked through the doors of my place, the first place, was, to me, is like gold, like family. So I said, sure. But I was really expecting, a 5-minute YouTube kind of thing. And, if she wants to waste 5 minutes of her time, that's fine.
Right.
So, and that's how she approached it. And then it just kept on building and building. I mean, she's been working on it for 7 years. I believe, don't quote me on it, but I believe she left a permanent position to finish the film 3 years ago.
Wow.
And everything kept snowballing. People kept on sending her all sorts of info, and people, I mean, it just really, really surreal that it went from, me wanting to hang out in a bar, listening to music on mixtapes, to, oh, wow, movie, like a 5-minute movie. And then she got, grants from Canada, the Arts Council and national, whatever, a couple of different places. And it was like a full-fledged 81-minute, full feature doc. Yeah. To me, it's still really, really bizarre. I'm still trying to take it all in because, like I said, I'm a pretty decent promoter. I'm pretty lousy self-promoter.
So one of the things that Deke mentioned to me is that a lot of the older photos in the movie, the guy that she got the photos from was he was at all the metal shows, all the rock shows. Was there any was it really a mix of different kind of music back in the day, or was it mostly rock stuff?
No, you know what? If you look, the only reason there's any footage of the film is because of Brent Linton. He's a photographer. He's still a photographer, great photographer, friend of mine from Thunder Bay. So he took the footage. But, it's not like I could email and say, hey, Brent, I got Nashville Pussy or I got Bad Brains. If it was punk rock and hardcore, he was going to drop by. The Chronicle was pretty close by, so I'm not sure if it was because he was just down the street. But he wasn't an official photographer or anything. But I'm so grateful that he did that.
Yeah.
I was never one of those guys that I took a selfie with my only selfie, believe it or not. I didn't even take not even one with Lemmy, and I wish I would have taken one from Lemmy. But the only one I took one with was Sammy T. Herring, because he was in the smoking area at Crocks. Like all the bands I did not take pictures with them or take pictures, period, of the bands.
Yeah, but taking photos back then was a whole process. You had to go get the film developed.
It's true. It was a process, but that all being said, it wasn't all punk rock. The truth is that we had, we for all the footage you see of the punk rock stuff, that's only probably 10% of what went through that place. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Here's a band. Well, they're punk rock too. Geez, Descendants and all. They played there. Milo Goes to College, one of my favorite albums from the early '80s. But anyways, they played there in the mid '90s. Like Cracker wasn't punk rock. They were a great band. They played there. There were so many genres. Not a lot of pop stuff back then in the first the first venue, there wasn't a lot of poppy stuff, but there was a lot of, like Skydiggers, some great local bands, Apollo Groove Shuttle. Yes, I mean, if you want to, Sarah McLachlan, Crash Vegas, there's so many different styles. One of my favorite, Biff Naked, another one. One of my favorite ones was one of the first bands. I never booked them. A local guy, Harbor Lights Productions, booked them. Ron Thompson and the Resistors. I didn't even know what the hell blues was. I was like 20, it was probably like 24 at the time. And I'm playing Laurie Anderson on my in between sets, and people are telling me to switch it to something bluesy. I own no blues music. I knew it, but I had some reggae stuff, so I put on some reggae. But Ron Thompson and the Resistors, my God, I mean, we had some of the best blues acts ever. We had a guy named, I was crazy back in the day because we were doing so well with the daytime restaurant. So I can book some of these people. I remember having this world-class jazz pianist. We brought in a grand piano, and I had this vision of doing all sorts of stuff. And I had this guy named Oliver Jones. You can Google him up. I mean, he was old then. I don't know if he's still alive, but Oliver Jones. And he's like this world-renowned jazz pianist. And we brought in, Tune the Baby grand piano. And then the next night we did DOA. So we're having spaghetti supper, candlelight dinner with Oliver Jones, and then the next night we go to Joy Shithead punk rock band. But we did all sorts of genres, everything, jazz, folk. We did art show. We did all sorts of stuff.
Oliver Jones is alive, and he is
Happy
86 years old.
86.
Wow.
So he would have been. Holy shit, he looked a lot older than 55. Oh, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but you know what? That's awesome he's alive. Yeah, he played. Does it say what he does?
Canadian jazz pianist, organist, composer, and arranger.
Yeah.
Plays piano and associated acts, Oscar Peterson.
Yeah, he's huge, man.
He's an officer of the Order of Canada as of 1993.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, booked him. He was one of the first, one of the original acts that I booked. And I think that was still my impact from Laurier, seeing all these jazzy bands. So I go, jazz, this must be good. So I booked him. But yeah, that's a little, there's a lot of people that played there that nobody, I mean, again, for Thunder Bay, mind-boggling that any of it even happened. I would think personally, as a promoter, I would say, have you ever seen a doc called Salad Days about the Washington D.C.? Yeah, I'm sorry, I am a lot about punk rock, but I mean, I like a lot of it is.
I see a tail wagging behind you.
Yeah, that's my dog. She's in the show. A lot of these scenes, and but just what I always found made Thunder Bay personally to myself stand out was that, as a promoter now and all these years later, if you put me in Portland or Seattle, all the raw material is there. I mean, the traffic is going up. Well, with the exception of this year, the traffic is flowing. There's no traffic flowing. Between November and May, there's nothing here.
Oh, really?
So, you take all those years, really between December, nobody tours up here. American acts, American bus driving companies do not want to tour these highways. It's a pretty well-known fact. Because they, Texans don't even know what a winter tire is, so I don't blame them. But December, January, February, March, sometimes April, and then you go into a playoff season. It's a complete shit show here year long.
So how come no temptation to take your talents to a bigger town? Is it just a love for Thunder Bay, or Just one the people or something?
Oh, you mean the music?
No, like you could probably, like you're saying, like you could go to Portland and do what you do in Portland or whatever, and it'd probably be easier for you because more acts flow through there. Even I'd even say Sudbury had. I grew up in Sudbury, and Sudbury had more of a music scene, because it's just an easier place for bands to get to. So how come the temptation was never there, just to take your expertise and bring it and just make your life a little bit easier? Like, is it just a love for Thunder Bay?
No, I mean, a lot of that had to do. I think a lot of it was just family reasons at the beginning. Now, not so much. I don't have any of those. I don't have a lot of. That's not so much there, as much as it was before. But you take a town like Sudbury, and no offense to Sudbury, no offense to the townhouse.
You can offend Sudbury; it won't offend me.
Yeah, no, first of all, I'll give a shout out to the Colson, the team.
Oh yeah,
they're awesome people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got nothing to do with the strip club next door. Because even when I was in there, I didn't go into the strip club. But
I've never been there either.
The Colton, I did Coulter Wall there, and the strip club. Basically, there's no doors. It's right, boom.
Yep.
Awesome venue, awesome little venue. And but you take a town like Sudbury, they're in the middle of it all. Like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
That Thunder Bay. And I'm going to say this: Thunder Bay made probably more noise on that mid-level scene than a place like Sudbury. But I mean, Thunder Bay is probably closer. Like, what's the population of Red Deer? Like Thunder Bay is only 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
20,000 are probably in Alberta or were in Alberta. I don't know. It's a pretty small town. But it got me. I got to know music pretty good. Like if I was in a bigger city, I probably only, would have booked metal or hip hop or something like that. Whereas in Thunder Bay, I really got to know music really, really well. So, we'll see. I'm open to ideas now. So,
what about your music collection that was alluded to in the movie? It was a prized possession of yours, and is it just immense now? Like, is it an incredible collection, or what do you got?
I probably got one. We had some rain damage, or whatever you call it, ice damming in the house, and we had insurance adjusters come in, and they had to draft out the basement. And I was looking at the blueprint in it, and there's this really rather large room, that said archives. I go, what the hell is an archives room? Archives? That'd be my place. And then I look at it, I go, oh, he means my record collection. It's got like probably a few thousands and thousands of cassette tapes. Don't know why.
Wow.
Thousands of CDs. Probably a few thousand albums. And all my albums, I would take them, buy them, record or make a mixtape, put them back in the sleeve.
Beauty.
So they're still brand new albums. And I won't, I'm not going to get rid of them now. I haven't got rid of them. I'm not a pack rat, but I probably got at least a CD, a cassette from any band that sent me. The only one I ever got rid of, no word of a lie, was a Nickelback EP.
Oh.
And I got, the only reason I got rid of it is when eBay first came online.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I want to see how this eBay shit works. What can I sell? Oh, I'll listen. I really don't listen to it. And I picked out, but they, backstory, when they were good. At the beginning, they were really awesome. They were incredible at the beginning. They're not, not so much what they are now. But, other than the Nickelback EP, I hung on to just about everything.
Do you have the rolling shelves? You got a...
No,
archive.
They're just in shelves, just regular old shelves and cases and boxes and crates.
Do you have a catalog somewhere? Like, do you got a spreadsheet or anything, or is it all up in your head?
No, just like this Dred Zeppelin shirt. all my kids, I had 3 kids, they all grew up wearing rock t-shirts. I got t-shirts going back to the 80s that are still in mint shape, but
Nice.
always a shirt. I can finally fit into the large again from the 90s. But no, nothing cataloged. But you know what? The reason I keep a lot of it is because until I wore this Dred Zeppelin t-shirt, I remember the night clearly, almost like I'm there. So as long as I feel the material, or I feel the shirt, or I read the CD, or I look at and it's like, oh man, I can remember the entire night now. So it's like a thing to trigger my memory. So I won't get rid of any of it.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a total collection of a music lover. That's for sure. I don't know. You know, that's the thing too, Frank. Like, Crocks was always one to give, you know, we guys talk about some of the local acts, you know, that came through. You basically give opportunity, let you get up on stage, hone the chops, bring them back. Might be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, whatever, but you at least let the bands get on stage and smash it out. I mean, you didn't really see that really, not too many places in town. I can think of one other place, but you know, a lot of it was covers. They wanted, I guess, probably, you know, to play Harlequin, to play this, that, but you let anybody get up on stage, including Kurt River, and smuck around with their whatever you want to call it sound.
I kind of wanted to ask about that. How good was Deke's band when he played there?
You know what? Hotter was a t-shirt called Hotter to Hell.
That was the name of the tape. Yeah.
I was looking for that tonight, but I have I've got 2 of them.
I thought you were setting me up when you said the only cassette you ever got rid of.
No, I wouldn't, because a lot of those, you know, look at with some of the young bands. For me, I'm going to answer 2 things in this question. And with that, the documentary, I didn't realize how important it was to people until this year, the place. In my mind, it was kind of like it really was. It was you know, I'm a big dreamer. I was also always a social experiment, because while I was doing the first venue, I was thinking, man, I'm wondering if these bands are having an impact on these kids, like that DJ and those bands did at Wilfrid Laurier a few years ago that had on me, right? So it was kind of like a social experiment. So when I put some of these young guys on, these young bands on, I knew I knew it was going to be a kick for some of them, right? You know, you kind of hope that it's kind of like planting seeds, not on purpose, but I mean, you know what? I felt like, okay, hopefully I wanted to do that, but I didn't really see it until the movie came out, because I lost touch with everybody. And now I'm starting to find out, wow, people are messaging me, and it's like, okay, this is really fucking weird. You know, like people are messaging me from all across North America, San Francisco, Vancouver. A lot of the people, I mean, they're running like they're still there, and a lot of them, you know, my whole idea was that, you know, if I can do this shit out of Thunder Bay, you can too, right? That's kind of what I wanted, but I lost touch with everybody after a period of time. Yeah. So, but putting those young guys like Jeff, I used to be in a band called, please let me remember, Julian. They used to play there all the time. Darren Foley and Crystal Blue. I mean, some of you guys really sucked. I mean, really, I mean, I knew my music, and like, and what's even more bizarre, you know, like sometimes I go, why did I actually paid those guys? You know, it still bugs me. But you know what? The truth is, man, everybody got so much better. And to see some of these kids that were 14, you know, 15, 18, and now still, doing blogs and still into music, man, I love it. I love seeing it. I love hearing about it because we all work, we all feed off each other, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've told Mikey this story before, and obviously told you, Frank, but I don't know if I ever told Kevin, but the first time the Current River Band ever played Crocks, I knew who Frank was, but didn't know him personally. Never even spoke to the man. The guy in our band playing guitar, Moose, knew Frank because his band, Head Cramp and DOD, they played there. So he was kind of our into Crocks. So he says, he sold us to Frank. He probably gave him the cassette. We did everything ass backwards. We hadn't even played a show, and there we are trying to fumble around on a 4-track with a bunch of songs about Current River. But anyways, Moose somehow sold it to Frank and got us a Saturday night show, which was, Crocks was a pretty big thing. So, man, me working at the hospital, I just hit up everybody. So come on, and they said, what kind of songs are you playing? I said, I don't know, stuff like Black Crowes and Stones and stuff. And somebody goes, and then I realized at the time I was working in the kitchen, it was with a bunch of women who all listened to country. They go, do you do country? And I'm like, oh, yeah, we do. And then I went and told the other guys, hey, we got to learn a country tune. So anyway, we get a show. Frank gives us the show, and it's a Saturday night, and place is actually, people came out in droves that I worked with, thank God. And we were a disaster. It was out of control. Like, we were just so far out of our league. Like, we'd only been rehearsing for about maybe a month with that incarnation. It wasn't even every night. Like, we went up on stage and we blasted through it, and we're nervous as shit. And I'll never forget, we're packing up and we're talking to Moose and packing up our stuff. And I just remember at the back of Crocks, the kitchen door swinging open, and there's Frank going, Moose. And we're like, oh shit. And Troy goes, should we go with him? I said, I don't know, man. Is he going to get whacked? Maybe we better. So we went. I'll never forget, we're standing in the kitchen, and Frank, he looks at me and Troy thinking, he goes, tell you guys what? He goes, you guys sucked, but you know how to pull a crowd? And he's putting down 20s in our hands, and he says, can you play Tuesday?
Oh, nice.
Tuesday. We're like, and we're driving home, and Troy's going, we're freaking awful. We're not playing Tuesday. Next thing you know, Tuesday hurt so good. Oh, man. But you know what? It was fun. And you let us come back and smash around and pretend we were rockers for a night anyways. And, so, but we were already in our 20s at the time, but I still remember playing like locally with Mouth.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, those guys were good. My brother's band, Sea yeah. Like, those guys could have went far, I think, Mouth. Like, they were talented fellas, like, these guys were, to fill in Kevin and Mikey, they were that age, 94-ish, where it was an alternative sound. But the thing that separated Mouth from everything else was these guys could play, and they could sing, and they had their chops together. I remember we did one show with them, and they played before us, and I basically puked in my mouth. I didn't even want to go on after them because they were just like already to that next level, and they were like 5-6 years.
Really cool.
Yeah. So, we've had some good stuff come out of this town locally. Page 38, if we're talking current, they're very good. They even stuck out I bought it off iTunes. I think they got it out on CD and stuff. And
the musicianship in town lately has been, I'm going to say the last 5 years, but I noticed it 10 years ago. Like, in every genre, it's mind blowing. I don't even know if they're self-taught now. I have no idea because I'm not a musician, but the musicianship is the show. Lips, Anvil, the openers, Cobra and Mongoose, and Page 38. That was that night, right?
Yep.
I thought those bands, like Jamie Smith, I think he was in a band called Auditor General. The guy's as good, the band is as good as anything touring in that, genre of music in Canada. I mean, before, if I booked a local band, it's like, yeah, okay, they got a bunch of high school friends, they packed the place, so I'm happy. But I was never really, I mean, I'm not naive. I mean, I needed money, so I would pack a band. I won't mention the bands, but there's quite a few bands over the years. They sucked, but they brought in 400 friends because none of them, they still had 400 high school friends that they were still hanging out with. Mm-hmm. Some of them were okay, some of them were sucked. But you get bands like, then you get some of these other bands, and they were just really, really good. And no, they never drew anybody. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's in other cities or just in Thunder Bay, but it's always the best bands that draw shit. Some of the best bands in the world nobody ever hears about. And like those bands, like that Page 38, incredible. Forever Dead. There's a lot of good local bands. That wasn't here. I mean, there was Twist of Faith, which was good with Barb Speece back in the day. There were Ministers of Persuasion with Bob Lurkowski. He was the band from Aladdin Sane. Super, super good singer. I mean, these guys, there's a lot of good talent in this town. Really, really is. And I think the isolation is why, if there would have been other metropolitan, like if we had more centers so they can, say Sudbury was only 2 hours away, or everything is 8 hours, a day's ride away.
Yeah. Wow.
You want to go to Winnipeg, you got to plan it out, right? You can't go over the border because the border, you got the paperwork you got to do. But there's a lot of good talent in Thunder Bay. There was back then. I think one of the Apollo Groove Shuttle is a band that I think should have really taken off from Thunder Bay back in the day. We're talking like 95.
Yeah, that's definitely going back. Mikey?
Should I ask the question? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to ask the question. There's been a little back and forth on the blogs lately about Canadian music. And an opinion that came up that I personally do not agree with, but I'm curious about your point of view, is Canadian music is inferior to American music because as a nation, we are not as culturally diverse as the United States. Ooh. And I don't agree with that personally, but I kind of wanted to get your opinion.
Because we're not as culturally diverse as the United States?
Right. Like we don't have that Mississippi Delta history that they have. I think we have other things, but that was the point that was being made to us. And I strongly disagree. I think Canada has an incredibly diverse culture, and I think that feeds into the music just as much as it does in the United States. Couldn't have had Gordon Lightfoot without Canada.
Damn, I'm not even going to say I never thought of it in that way, but it's kind of interesting. But I think the last 25 years, maybe I can understand that whole Mississippi thing, Austin City, like there's those definite sounds because of the history of, I get it. The Vegas Strip, the whole metal, the whole glam thing of the late 70s, early 80s. But because they have the history, oh man, and I really, really hate to bring up the hip again, but during that period, REM was super big with the college kids. REM was super big. And it just seemed that every band that was coming out seemed to be a ripoff of the REM sound, including the hip. And I'm sorry, Gordy, but that's just my opinion at the time. I just felt that everything Canada was doing was, Teenage Head. I love Teenage Head. but they were, and I love Teenage Head as well. I really do. I love all the guys in that band, but I don't know if there's anything predominantly unique that's Canadian.
Fair.
Maybe Gordon Lightfoot. I think To Tragically Hip did later on develop their own, but that's, that it takes history and it takes time. And I think Canada is developing a really, really strong culture with arts, music, film, everything. I don't think I'm going to have to agree. I don't think has as much history, maybe musically, because but everything Canada did sort of was even with what I was doing here, it was my interpretation. I'd never been to any of these clubs, but I was always trying to interpret what a cool venue from the UK would be like. Because I would read about these UK venues, right? I'd never seen them. I didn't know what it was all about. And I think with Canadian music as well, there was a period of time, I'm going to say 30 years ago, that a lot of things were, maybe 40 years ago even, were a knockoff of American artists, maybe some UK artists. But I think we've come into our own in the last, for sure, 25 years. I think there is sort of, I do believe there's there's a Nashville sound. There's sort of like a LA sound, maybe. There was a Seattle sound. Sure. I think there is something unique about Canadian. It's like a mishmash of everything. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure. That's a really, I'm going to probably think about that one all night long.
I like your answer. I think it's a great answer. I'm very proud of the diversity of Canadian music personally. So I was a little insulted when when this question came up, but granted, we don't have a Nashville and a Seattle and a Texas and all this other stuff, but I think we do have some pretty incredible diversity in our popular music.
Oh, it's incredible, and I think I've noticed it myself more and more in the last, I'm going to say the last 20 years.
I really enjoy hearing like a lot of East Coast references or East Coast influences in my rock music. A little bit of fiddle here and there, and a little bit of that East Coast kind of folksy sound. I love a little bit of that in my rock music.
Yeah, guys like Matt Mays are like, to me that's like an East Coast sound.
Yeah.
I can't even put them into any kind of category. I hate categories. I hate, pigeonholing people. I just doing that. But a lot of these bands, Arcade Fire from Montreal. That's super. That's as, that's to me that's a Montreal sound. I don't know what a Montreal sound is, but
yeah, who knows?
Montreal to me has always had kind of a little bit eclectic scene going on, a lot of cool stuff going on over there. But yeah, I think too, just population wise, United States is 330 million people. Canada, we're a little bit bigger than North Carolina. We're probably the population of Texas.
Oh, we're smaller than that. Texas is huge now.
Well, about 30 million. We're about 35.
Yeah, I guess so. I know we're smaller than California. California's at like 50 million.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of an unfair comparison, 30 million, 35 million people to 300 million. Even the UK outdoes us, I think a more fair comparison would be something like, I don't know, Amsterdam or something like that. But, they have, in those European countries, they have the language barrier where they can, get their own kind of music, even if they are like the, Austrian version of, Nickelback or whatever it is, for the lack of a really not better example, but they can do their own thing. Whereas in Canada, we like really just absorb a lot of American and British stuff, and it's all in our language and that. And Canada definitely does have a problem though with, like, I remember in the 90s, I can't remember what movie I was watching, but there was like an active, like, I was something about Much Music, and they were talking about how Canada had to get its own version of Nirvana, or its own version of Stone Temple Pilots, and we got to get and play those kind of things. And like, Canada, we should be doing our own thing. We shouldn't be like just copying and pasting whatever they're doing over there just because it's popular. And I do think we do have our own. Like there's no one else like Leonard Cohen,
Right.
That like that's a unique thing. Neil Young, that was
Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell,
and without hats. I'm just going to John Michael Thor.
Oh, there, Rob Daniels has it all.
Matt Osborne, David Wilcox, the Guess Who, Gordon Lightfoot, and Stompin' Tom Connors. There you go. There's a whole bunch. And I've got a reader question here for Frank. Leola, I hope I'm saying that right. Leola would like to know what that documentary meant to you personally.
What it means to me personally.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't had a movie made about me.
Yeah, tough question. Coming from Leola. Because she's in the movie.
Oh.
You know what, family-wise, and this is for her, kind of feels like, I mean, I still find it surreal that anybody even took the time to do that somebody would take the time, because there's a lot of good stories out there. Everybody's got one. Mm-hmm. And, that somebody took the time to do a story on, what I was doing. I'm pretty humbled and flattered. I still am. Not everybody gets that. A lot of people go to the grave with untold stories, and it's kind of bothered me for a long time. A lot of people had, and it's not just about music, just about, a lot of people have great stories, and that should be, I really feel it should be, I think everybody should be documented. I really do. I really do mean that. And a little bit of vindication, not vindication, maybe that's a strong word. I'm sorry. My entire life, music came first before my kids, before my family, before anything, before money, before it didn't always make money. And unfortunately, that's what you need in life to go day to day with. And, I don't even know where I'm going with that. It's like, I'm completely humbled that somebody did that for me.
If I could take that on a tangent for a second, you mentioned you think everybody should have a documentary because there's so many stories. And, with these two guys here, we're kind of doing the punk rock thing, the DIY. And, we're telling our stories when we bought these albums the first time, when we saw these bands the first time. I think Deke calls them impact moments. But in a sense, I feel that what we are doing, telling our stories, is part of the greater history of rock in general. What we are doing is we are adding to the history of rock with our personal stories. In my opinion, that's how I feel about it. And I think with your stories that we've heard, we are expanding upon the history of rock. These may not be earth-shattering stories that are going to make Rolling Stone tomorrow night, but I think they're relevant and interesting, personally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think back to all the, even the way the whole scene exploded in the first place. I mean, it didn't, the scene that I come from, I'm not, again, the scene I came from is, You know, not the arena rock bands and not the massive, the club stuff, right? Small club stuff. And I really do believe it's the fans that made it progress. I was a fan. I still am. I've kept it going in my little circle. And if everybody else continues doing that, you guys are doing that very similar. I mean, what you guys are doing is very similar to the rags that I was reading in the mid 80s and how I found out about Deja Voodoo in Montreal. Like if I didn't know about, you know, if I didn't know about a certain band or a certain scene, I don't even remember how I got these things, but I got them, right? And but that's what built the scene. And who knows now with this whole pandemic thing?
Yeah,
maybe there's a whole new grassroots thing starting up right here. You know?
Well, that's how this started. Couldn't go out. Nobody else was going out, so we decided to kind of bring the rock to the people.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? It'll expand because somebody will go, "Hey, I like what those guys are doing," and they'll do something, and they'll do something, and then you know, because I always say this. I mean, the arena bands didn't come first. It was always those nitty gritty clubs in the UK or the States that brought the bands up. You know, that's where it all started. It didn't start at Scotia Place in Toronto. Yeah. You know, that was always my thing. It's like, you know, everybody does their little part, like you said, and you know, it just goes from there.
I got a question for you, Frank. I've seen bands in small clubs and in arenas.
Refresh my drink.
And I've always preferred small clubs. I just think there's something you get more connection with the band, and like I've seen Jeff Healey and like he was performing like right there, like I could reach out and touch him, you know. And when like he was in a blues mood that night because he was opening for James Cotton, who was Muddy Waters, harmonica player.
I booked James Cotton. He was great.
Yeah, it was a fantastic show, and like he was in a blues mood, so like he was playing nothing but blues covers, and every time the band would stop and that Muddy Waters-esque stop, like you could just feel the air rushing into the place, and that you don't get that in an arena. So, do you feel the same way? Like, do you feel like the club is a better place for live music than a big arena?
I mean, number one, I'm going to say live music, period, would be awesome right now.
Right. Yeah.
I would think live music anywhere right now. You know, my preference is, my preference is a smaller venue. Now, by smaller venue, it all depends what you mean by smaller venue, because you just can't do, like I said earlier, in the first version of my venue, I was limited to who I could book in there.
Right.
The second venue, Gord Downey actually wanted to do a solo tour a few years before his final tour. He had a solo project. Mm-hmm. And I was doing, I believe as long as you got 4 rooms, you got the capacity for the artist who you're booking at the time. I would do soft seat style. I'd bring in 500 chairs. You know, we did that for Rollins. We did that for Matthew Good. We did that for Biff Naked Spoken Word. We did that for several people. So I turned a rock club into a soft seater. Henry Rollins being the wildest one. But yeah, I prefer Rollins in a 500-seat club as opposed to a 2,500-seat venue. Mm-hmm. But on that side note, I went to see the Pixies and Weezer last year in April in Minneapolis. You know, 20,000 people. Oddly enough, everybody was there for Weezer. And, you know, Weezer got on and everybody's standing up and going crazy, and Pixies on. It's like nobody seemed to care. But that show, I would obviously, you know, you're not ever going to see them in a small club.
Right. So
I guess it depends on the artist. I mean, an artist like Kiss, you want to see them in an arena. You can experience them. It'd be impossible to experience them in a small club. Van Morrison, I guess you could experience, or someone like the Stones have played small clubs. You know,
Kids have done club gigs, but I think the last ones that they did were like in '92 when they were doing like the back to basics kind of thing.
yeah.
Not the kind of thing Gene Simmons wants to do on a regular basis.
Oh no, it would be, you know, and you know, let's face it, some of these people, when they're at that level, like that huge level, I mean, you know, there's only a couple of cities that can even handle shows like that, anyways. You know,
What do you think about like how they're getting around some COVID restrictions and that now, like the shows where you're sitting in a car and you see a band? Like, do you think that's like, is that going to be the wave of the future? Is that where we're going?
you know, my fear now, my only fear is that I'm going to be like one of these stubborn old guys that doesn't want to change with the times, even though, you know, I claim to be progressive. You know, and am I missing the boat on something? Am I missing on buying plastic bubbles? Am I missing on? I don't want to do it. I mean, I'm so lost right now. I mean, this is probably the first time without music. Music was always my identity. I feel like I don't even have an identity because I can't book a show. I don't even, like, you know, I'm kind of lost right now. So I'm not sure. I mean, I can't, the drive-in thing, I have no interest in that. I don't know which way it's going to go. I really, for the first time in my life, I am completely, the only thing I can think of is that everything always works out.
Right.
Yeah. Hopefully.
I don't know which way the industry is going to go. I mean, I don't think Live Nation's the biggest in the world, and they don't know.
Oh,
You know?
Deke's back. There we go.
Nice.
We lost him, but he's back.
Somebody accidentally knocked the modem upstairs.
Oh, I thought we were playing musical chairs here.
Yeah, that's it.
Like Holly, hey Fred or Frank, it's the Dukes of Hazzard version of Hollywood Squares. Oh shit.
Well, I'm glad you're back, Deke. I just got a message saying, where'd Deke go?
Oops. I went upstairs and I'm like, did we just lose the internet somehow?
Are there any concerts in Southern Ontario? Like, is anybody performing anywhere? Or
No.
Yeah, well, some small. I see small gigs happening with like very small time local artists playing in small bars with like plastic barriers, things like that. Very limited seating. A band called July Talk just did a car drive-in show somewhere. I can't remember.
Yeah, that was a virtual thing.
Yeah. And Monster Truck did one like that too. But there's very little going on here right now. Very, very little. In fact, we lost, I believe we've already lost a couple of clubs this year. We lost the Boathouse in Kitchener. A place called the Button Factory in Waterloo is accepting donations just to stay afloat. It's a scary thing. I believe Maxwell's is still okay, but you know, who knows how long.
Yeah, there's no end in sight. So who knows?
Right.
I don't know how anybody can stay. I don't know how that works.
No, I don't know either. And where I am locally, we're probably going into a tighter lockdown. We're just kind of waiting for some details, but looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's been a surreal year. You know, first COVID and then losing all these amazing stars in the same year, like Van Halen a month ago today. It's been a crazy, crazy year. It's been like certainly historic, but not in a good way.
No, not in a good way at all. I mean, it's just been one thing after another, but you're just hoping for better days.
Yeah.
But
It's just adding to our interesting stories when someone makes a movie of us. This is how it started right here.
Right.
Hey, you know what? They should.
I don't think so. I don't think my story is as interesting as yours. You had to put yourself out there, you know, and take chance and take risk, which that makes for an interesting story. Unlike me, who takes all the safe routes. So.
Well, it wasn't a safe. Yeah, it definitely wasn't a safe way to go. But I mean, there was no other. It almost felt like I had no choice in it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to say, like, it felt like I had no choice, like, the whole time.
Do you believe in fate?
Do I believe in fate?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're saying this was almost like you were born to do this. Do you believe in fate?
I guess you would say that. Yeah. I believe in a lot of things. I probably won't put out there.
That's fine. But it does sound like you feel like this is what you were made to do.
I had no choice. I really had no choices. Like, everything was. There were so many situations that were set up that there were even nights where. Yeah, just a lot of things that happened where just everything was, worked out. I still believe that. Like, I have no, music was really my entire identity, and I had no idea which way it's going to go. The movie's awesome. It's great that there's a story.
Yeah.
But my story didn't end at the end of that movie.
Right.
I still have to survive.
There should be a sequel. We should talk to Kirsten.
Yeah, I mean,
$10 at the door. We'll call it.
$25 at the door. But with the whole pandemic thing, I have no. Do I go get my real estate license? Working for yourself. There's no company pension. There's no retirement. Right. So for me, it's like I was expecting to, be wheeled out of a venue one day on a stretcher if I had to go. That's what I want to do until I'm done. I mean, music's in my blood, and but right now, and there's probably millions of people, but I do know one thing that's going to happen after this thing is all over. Predominantly, it's a younger guy's business, and a lot of these guys are going to be forced to go outside. A lot of venues, sadly, are going to close. A lot of American agents who are who do the Canadian tours, because American tours, money-wise, I always say that because I'm a music guy, but I understand the financial aspect of it. The American tours are the most successful. Okay, but American agents have there's a network established. Well, I don't know how many guys are left. I know personally 6 people that will not come back into the business, that won't be back in business. And the longer this continues, Maxwell's was a key venue. I don't know if there's going to be a venue in Thunder Bay. There was hardly any venues before. It was getting bad before the pandemic with live music in Thunder Bay. And there's nothing to say that, all of a sudden the pandemic is over and people are going to go back. I mean, it's going to be 2 years. Well, let's say music of a certain caliber doesn't return till the end of 2021. That would be almost 2 years. The entire music industry changes in 6 months. I've had bands that have toured in 2012, did well, came back 3 years later, and nobody gave a shit anymore. Because they're not in the public face. Everything's so I really don't know what's going to happen with going forward. But I do think it's exciting. It's kind of a new place to be, really.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, once live music does come back, I mean, a lot of people are going to be wanting to get out of their house.
You could play at Crocks and sell it out when this thing's over.
No.
Yeah, it might be tough. Well, but if you went to Kitchener, you probably could.
Heck yeah.
Well, local bands get a bad rap no matter where they're from.
Oh man, that's too funny. But well, Frank, thanks for coming on the show with us.
No, thank you.
Big time, thank you.
We've been bugging you for a while, or I've been bugging you for a while, and once the documentary came out and was released, I said to those 2 guys right above me, I said, guys above me, you have to watch this documentary because it's about Thunder Bay. You'll get a feel for it.
Yeah.
Plus, it's free. What's free in 2020? So
You didn't have to twist my arm, man. I mean, you've been telling so many stories about Crocs and shows you've seen there that it was an automatic must-watch for me anyway, just thanks to you.
Well, I'm excited to see what happens, like the response it gets in Minnesota and Texas, because I've never, ever in a million years expected anything like that. Getting into Texas for a Canadian band or any Canadian business, but getting interest, and there's been some really good feedback so far, and to be surrounded by films like, Zappa and the whole festival is full of some remarkable films.
Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, obviously, Kirsten put a lot of work into it.
Amazing.
And like I thought it was important tonight to have Kevin and Mike on. Well, it's obviously Mike's show to begin with, but I thought it was important with Kevin as well, because I mean, I wrote my review and I just told them, I said, you guys just got to watch it. And they took the time to write their own reviews, their own spin on it from outside of Thunder Bay, which I thought was cool. And that was the only thing that we'd bring you on along with Kev and Mike and talk about it. So thank you, my friend. And
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Down the road, if you want to come back on, man, you know where to find all three of us yahoos, and be more than happy to talk music with you, my friend.
All right, man. It's fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Right. Good talking to you.
Ciao. That was
awesome.
That was cool.
I could have talked to that guy all night. Give me 2 more hours. I have
You
more
know what-
questions.
You know what the best thing about talking to Frank tonight was? I could hear him. Because whenever I talk to Frank, it's either after a show and it's like,
I feel like I can take my hat off now. We're
but
done.
you know what?
I can unwind.
Yeah, and it was great. He gave a ton of insight about being a local guy in a place like Thunder Bay, which obviously can relate to you guys too. Like same thing. I mean, it's life experiences, and yeah, it was pretty cool, man. I thought, well, he might just say a few things because he's not a big camera guy, and
Yeah.
like I said, I've been bugging him. I wanted to do a thing for my blog and never got around to it. And then once the movie came out and Mike started doing this, I thought, yeah, I got to get a real music guy on, like livelihood. That's this guy's livelihood, man. So gave a ton of insight. So love to have him back again, because then we can get into the backstage Motorhead stories and stuff like that, and Henry Rollins, and so much more we could have talked. But he ran with it, and it was awesome. So
Now, I do want to talk about one thing, which I hinted at earlier. Kevin has a side gig on Jeopardy right now.
Oh yeah, what's that about?
Right, so I'm just emailing myself the picture so I can put it on the screen here. But we watch Jeopardy pretty regularly in this house. Good brain exercise. And last night we were watching, and believe this is Kevin Simister, but maybe he will beg to differ. Let's do the old share screen thing.
It's not a picture of Richard Dreyfuss, is it? Because you got the wrong guy.
No, but I believe that this is you. You just changed one letter. I believe that to be you right there.
He's not wearing a hoodie, so it can't be me.
You can't wear a hoodie on Jeopardy. It's Alex Trebek.
Oh, I would. I want to be comfortable when you're making me think.
Anyway, I saw that guy last night, and I just thought, hey, look, it's Kevin.
Mikey, I think there's something else we got to talk about with Kevin here too.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think you know what, Kev, me and Mikey might have some breaking rock metal news for you here.
Oh, I'm all ears.
What are we talking about here?
Remember a month ago you bought Judas Priest Painkiller?
Right. So did you hear this news, Kevin?
No.
Okay, so you're aware of the bass player, the lineup, Judas Priest lineup, the bass player named Ian Hill.
Okay.
We found out today, thanks to, I believe it was an article on Brave Words.
I think Loudwire. Yeah.
Ian Hill didn't play bass on Painkiller. Apparently, he was not in the best of health. And the keyboard player from Deep Purple, Don Airey, who played a little bit of keyboards on Painkiller, played the bass.
He played the what?
Apparently, according to Don Airy, the bass on the Painkiller album is him on Moog.
No.
Yeah.
Play me some Painkiller right now. I want to hear it.
And Lana, wait, what? That's check it out, Lana. Google it. It's made some minor headlines today, but that's the news that we heard today. Is that Don Airy played bass on Painkiller, and it's not even bass, it's Moog.
That's not possible because I've seen the video for Painkiller, and there's a bass player in that video.
Ian Hill does this a lot.
Yeah, I thought of you right away. I was going to send it to you, Kev, but I thought I was going to bring it up. So I sent it to Mikey, and we had a giggle and a laugh about it. So I thought, no, I got to bring it up now that we have you on. So there you go. But who knows?
What was his issue? Was he was it a drug thing or?
Hey, they just said that he was having a health issue at the time. And Lana, it was the whole album, not just the song. Yeah. Apparently,
I mean, there you go. And like I said to Mikey earlier, there they are having the 2 drummers on the Turbo tour,
right?
Supposedly.
Mm.
And
stories like this are not surprising anymore.
No,
but that one did take me by surprise a little bit because you've never heard about Ian Hill any issues really, and also just it's kind of bizarre that it was a keyboard player taking over the bass duties. And I agree with Lana. We're all going to have to listen to
yes,
the album again.
absolutely.
Kevin's sending it back to Amazon at midnight tonight.
Yeah, that's it. I'll go. No, I don't care if they were playing it with slide whistles. I think it's a great album. So
I love the album. I'll do a plug here. I'm actually finishing up. My plan is to review all the rest of the Judas Priest in the year 2020. I'd like to get it all done. I have one more studio album. I've got 4 reviews on deck that I've finished. I have one more studio album to review, and then I think 1 live album after that, and then I should be done with the Priest. I'm hoping.
I got coming up on Monday. I'm posting.
Oh, yeah, because you're done Maiden now, right?
Yeah, I'm done Maiden. Yeah, so I finished the Halford book last weekend, so I got that coming up on top this week at the blog. So check it out. Great read, though.
Ian Hill is overrated in general and doesn't get talked about much. I don't know that he's overrated. I think he's rated about accurately, but he doesn't get talked about much. That's just that's your lot in life if you're in the rhythm section of Judas Priest. And Rob Daniels said that the show was cool. I didn't get to put very many comments up, but who's going to interrupt Frank Loffredo when he's talking about booking all these bands? No, not me.
Yeah, that sentence didn't make sense by Lana. She says he's underrated now. Underrated.
Yeah, okay, so
that makes sense.
I still don't think he's underrated. I think he's rated appropriately. He's not a flashy bass player. He basically plays quarter notes. I think he's rated. He doesn't write very much music.
Ian Hill's finest musical achievement is the bass on Hot Rockin'.
Which is basically dugga, 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 dugga.
That was just a joke, and Kevin found no humor in it whatsoever.
No, I got it. It just, yeah. I think there's something though to be said by a guy who can, I'm an AC/DC fan. There's not much flash in the bass playing for AC/DC. So I think there's something to be said about a really strong core, a rhythm section for a band that can just stick to that sound and let the, I don't want to say better talent, but like the bigger talent do the fills and all that stuff. Like you look at the Who, right? Like Pete Townshend, he started off as the lead guitarist, but then he as much as of an ego that guy has, he eventually recognized that Keith Moon and why am I blanking on the bass player? Entwistle were better at doing the fills than he was. So he would just play the big power chords and let them do the fills. So, yeah. And think of that gig that guy has. Guys like Ian Hill and Cliff Williams. Like, that's just such a sweetest gig. Just go there, you play the basic stuff, Just show up on time.
You know,
Know the songs.
I'll throw something interesting out at you, and this is for Deke as well. You take a band like Priest, and they often get compared to Iron Maiden because they're exact same format. You know, dual
Fun
guitar,
fact.
bass, lead vocals. But
Wait, hold on. Fun fact.
Yeah.
If I play Iron Maiden or Judas Priest, Sarah still cannot tell the difference between the two.
So
Drives me mental.
You see where I'm going with this. The two bands, you know, they occupy the same metal space, right? But yet they couldn't be rhythmically more different. In Maiden, you've got Steve Harris leading the pack with his bass, and it's very eloquent. Well, not eloquent's not the word. I don't know. It's a verbose bass sound, you know. He really goes at it, and then of course Ian Hill is playing it very, very straight. So totally different bands rhythmically, but yet they occupy the same metal space.
Yeah, I think in Sarah's case, she's very much singer, lyrics kind of person.
Sure.
I think that's what she like, because when you listen to something, you can focus on just that one thing, and I think that's what she puts ahead. So when she hears either Bruce Dickinson or Rob Halford, they both sound the same, alike to her. She can't tell the difference.
Which takes us to Lana's comment here. Do the vocals make a difference, Halford and Dickinson?
I mean, I'm with you. I think they're completely different bands. Like I put it on, and she says, "Oh, is this Iron Maiden?" I'm like, "No, it's Judas Priest." Like what the like, and it's Painkiller or something like that. Like they've never done anything like Iron Maiden. But
I remember being even like back in high school in '84, and remember Defenders came out, and then Power Slave came out that year, and I remember somebody in high school saying, "Imagine if Priest had Nico and Steve as their rhythm section," and we're like, "Oh, that's yeah." But then and then you
a different band.
Yeah, and then 2 years later, Turbo comes out, and it's like, no, I can never hear Steve and Nico doing that stuff. But
yeah,
it was. But I think it was just the musicianship of Priest. Every focus on the guitars and Halford. I'm talking the '80s era Priest,
right,
with Dave Hall and the drums and stuff. So when you break Maiden and Priest down into once you get down to the drums and bass,
yeah,
it was an interesting conversation.
Here that Ian Hill has been forgettable, replaceable. So he's not surprised that you couldn't tell it was a synthesizer, but it was 30 years. 30 years, meat. That's how old we are, buddy.
Yeah, that's a good point though, Deke, because Judas Priest, I feel, has had different eras. In their first album was like, they were trying to find their footing, but then they had that 70s kind of almost prog rock-ish, and the 80s sound, and then Painkiller. Like there's different eras, whereas Maiden, I think, is a little, their first two albums were a little more punk rockish. Yep. And then, once they got Dickinson in the band, they came a little bit different. But those albums I think they did in the 80s, even though they have a little bit of a different flavor, it's pretty much consistent Iron Maiden, Yeah,
they have their own unique sound, and they've certainly never done anything as much of a departure.
Yeah, like
the Turbo.
Judas Priest their changes are more dramatic than Iron Maiden.
Like Turbo was a dramatic about face. Nostradamus was as well, and so was Painkiller in a completely different direction.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, even think back to the Turbo tour when they opened up with Out in the Cold.
Right. What a very move.
And in the mid '80s opened up with this kind of powered-ish ballad of the album, and there's Priest. So you kind of got to give them credit. They kind of pushed that envelope, because after Turbo came Maiden with Somewhere in Time, and they kind of had that synthy sound, and they carried it to the Seventh Son, whereas Priest kind of did it and then put out Ram It Down, and but
I think the difference there is that I think Priest realized that they could not take that direction any further. They had to sort of on a metal track where they were going to lose people. Whereas Maiden, they didn't step far off the track with Somewhere in Time, so they were able to take it a step further on Seventh Son. But even with Seventh Son, they also said, okay, we've gone far enough with the keyboards. We want to get back and do a straight rock album, which is the one that you reviewed earlier this week, No Prayer for the Dying, which Mr. Harrison Kopp has been telling me that you did an excellent excellent write-up on. So I can't wait to read that when I catch up on your blog tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, but even Halford in his book, I'll give you guys a bit of a tidbit, but he talks like a good couple of pages about that whole Stock, Ackerman,
Right.
Waterman.
You Are Everything.
He talks about those 3 songs, and he still stands by them today. So, because they were supposed to do a double album, but the record company went, no, not on our watch. So
I got to dig up my old Much Music VHS tape with the 1987 Halford, 87 or 88 Halford interview on it, where he does talk about those tracks. And he said, the immediate reaction from fans was, oh my God, no, it's like Judas Priest Bananarama or Judas Priest Rick Astley. So, there was obvious. You don't want to be associated with those bands in 1988 or 89. It's just, you don't want that if you're a metal band. That is a career killer. It could have been. They'd released that. That could have been a career killer.
But anyways, guys, I'm going to check out. So thanks for having me on. Thanks for doing it along with us. It was fun.
That was awesome.
It's been over 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's a record for me, man. I got to go shut up now.
Yeah, you know what? I got to get a bite to eat.
I did a podcast before this. I've been talking since 4 o'clock.
Retro Fandango.
I'm not shocked by that.
I know. It's embarrassing.
It's not embarrassing. It's a good thing, pal.
I guess I'm having fun. Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me on, guys. It was awesome.
I just want to say real quick, just thank you to Deke for setting this up with Frank.
That was awesome.
And thanks, Kevin, for being here tonight.
Just showing up.
Great questions. And you know what, Kevin? Another thing I just want to thank you for real quick. This never would have happened if you didn't hook me up with StreamYard.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you were struggling there on Facebook, I just wanted to dive in and fix your show. And I think I said this to you before. There's so many guys that when you show them something like this, it's like, it's going to be constant question after question. It's going to be, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to go down this road, but all I did was show you StreamYard. I think you asked me 2 questions and then you took off with it and and that was just beautiful. It was awesome. And you know more about this thing than I do now.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
It's great. It's great. It's good stuff.
Thank you. Well, boys, I might hang out a little bit longer, but you guys are free to go if you like. Thank you so much again.
All right. Take care, guys. Have a good night.
All right, Mike.
See ya.
I gotta get out of here. Here we go. All right, bye.
Bye. Eric Litwiller. Iron Maiden has stayed the course for the most part, starting trends and trailblazing. Priest chased trends more than started them. 100% agreed. I hadn't really thought of it in those terms, but you're right. Maiden really did not chase trends. In the 90s when things got grungier and more alternative metal, Priest definitely went down that road with Jugulator. And Maiden, on the other hand, came out with The X Factor, which was completely the opposite of grunge and all that stuff. Thank you, Lana. Really appreciate it. At the start of the show, I mentioned I had a hand injury. You may have seen my bandage. I've taken it off now, but had a bit of a disaster in the kitchen earlier this week. Had a kitchen disaster where an air fryer melted, and I've been cleaning up. And today I was 10 minutes before going live, I was cleaning up the kitchen floor and caught a piece of glass on my hand. And there's always a piece of glass lying in the corner of the kitchen floor, isn't there? So that's my hand injury, which seems to have calmed itself down. It was bleeding pretty fierce at the start of the show. I thought I was going to be sitting here in pain, but not so bad. And also at the start of the show, I showed you briefly these 5-inch records. This is Evil Kirk, the very first time I ever performed the track Evil Kirk from Dr. Catherine Ladano, her solo album Open. This is the very first take. We used we might have done 4 takes. I'm not sure, 100% sure. But the only reason that this exists is that Aaron from the KMA, I made him a mix CD with Evil Kirk on it, the very first take of Evil Kirk. and he happened to still have that mix CD. Catherine didn't have the track anymore. I didn't have the track anymore, and neither did the guy who produced the track. Aaron did, and I decided to take it upon myself to press up the very first take of Evil Kirk onto vinyl. So it's a limited edition of 4 copies. Evil Kirk, 4 copies, and I can't say who they're for. One of them's for me. I'm really happy. I'm on vinyl now. This is a few weeks ago. I put Eric Litwiller and Max the Axe on vinyl, and now I'm on vinyl. So I'll just take a copy out here and show you. The back is just plain white, but the front is a picture disc. And there's me at the microphone, and there's Dr. Catherine playing bass clarinet. This is a 5-inch record. I don't know if you can really see the grooves there, the playing surface versus the blank surface, but I'm going to give this a spin tomorrow. Really looking forward to hearing Evil Kirk on vinyl, the very first take, the very first time I ever performed the song. And this is courtesy of Vinyl Art Co., who I've showcased on this program before. I'm very excited about that. Didn't Maiden maintain their success without radio airplay? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I very rarely heard Maiden on the radio. And when I did hear Maiden on the radio, it was either Run to the Hills or when they came out with something new and their new single would get a little bit of airplay. But otherwise, it wasn't. I don't think radio airplay mattered very much. Not in North America. Maybe in the UK, but not in North America. It didn't matter. And thank you. My hand is recovering nicely. It was pretty bad at the start of the show, but it's fine now. Well, 2.5 hours later, I think I'm going to call it a night. I thank you so much for watching. Thanks to Frank Loffredo for coming on tonight. Thanks to Kirsten for making $5 at the door, the story of Crocks N Rolls. Great film. I don't know how you would go about watching it currently, but I believe they are working on a physical release, I'm hoping. I hope we will have some more information on that in the coming months. Well, this has been Mike from the LeBrain Train, 2,000 words or more, with your host, Mike Ladano. You've been watching Frank Loffredo from Crocks N Rolls, and it's been a fantastic night, fantastic show, and I thank you for watching. Good night.